السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
In the last video, we reached the point where Prophet Muhammad began calling the people of Quraysh to Islam. But the leaders of Quraysh fought against him and started torturing the weak Muslims, including the family of Yasir. Let's continue together with the suffering faced by the first Muslims. There was a slave woman named Zinira. She accepted Islam, and her master kept torturing her severely until Abu Bakr al-Siddiq came and bought her in order to save her from the torture. After he freed her, she suddenly became blind. The Quraysh said, Al-Lat and Al-Uzza have taken revenge on her, referring to their false gods. But Zinira proudly replied, "They are lying, by the house of Allah. Al-Lat and Al-Uzza can neither harm nor benefit anyone." Then Allah returned her eyesight, and she was able to see again. Because of the terrible torture the Muslims faced, Islam became secret once more. Whoever accepted Islam would hide their faith, and the meetings between the Prophet and the Muslims continued secretly in the house of Al-Arqam without Quraysh noticing. But the Messenger of Allah still continued calling people to Islam publicly, so the persecution never stopped. The wife of Abu Lahab was called Jamil. She used to place thorns and wood in the path of Prophet Muhammad to injure his blessed feet. One day, she came near the Kaaba carrying a stone, wanting to throw it at the Prophet. She shouted, "Where is Muhammad?" And amazingly, the Prophet was sitting right in front of her, yet she could not see him. Abu Bakr al-Siddiq was sitting beside the Prophet, watching in shock. She said, "I heard that he insults me. If I see him, I will smash this stone into his face." All while the Prophet was sitting there before her eyes. But Allah blinded her from seeing him. Subhanallah. Later, she stood near Mount Safa and claimed that Muhammad was insulting her with poetry. She said, "Does Muhammad think he is a poet? I swear of Allah, I am a poet too, and I will insult him." Then she recited mocking verses, and the disbelievers repeated after her. Soon, the foolish people and children of Quraysh memorized those words and repeated them throughout the streets of Mecca. The companions became deeply hurt and angry. They wanted revenge and wanted to respond with violence against Quraysh. But the Prophet calmed them and said, "Do not worry. They insult Muhammad, while I am Muhammad. Look at the patience and gentleness of the Messenger of Allah." Another time, Prophet Muhammad was walking through the streets of Mecca. People would throw stones and sand at him while shouting, "Madman! Madman!" Then a man named Umayyah ibn Khalaf, the same man who tortured Bilal ibn Rabah, began mocking, insulting, and slandering the Messenger of Allah. Then Allah revealed words in the Quran concerning what Umayyah ibn Khalaf had done.
لكل همزة لمزة الذي جمع مالا وعدده يحسب أن ماله أخلده كلا لينبذن في الحطمة وما أدراك ما الحطمة نار الله الموقدة التي تطلع على الأفئدة إنها عليهم مؤصدة في عمد ممددة.
One day, the Prophet was praying near the Kaaba. Some leaders of Quraysh gathered and said, "Who among you will bring the filthy remains of a camel and throw it on Muhammad while he prays?" A wicked man named Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt said, "I will do it." He brought the disgusting remains and threw them onto the back of the Prophet while he was in prostration. The filth covered his blessed back, entered his clothes, and spread into his hair. Yet the Prophet did not raise his head from sujood. Then Fatima al-Zahra heard what had happened. She ran from her home to the Kaaba crying and screaming. When she reached her father, she fell beside him in tears and began removing the filth from his body while the people of Quraysh stood laughing and mocking. She cried out against them, "May Allah destroy you! May Allah curse you!" After the Prophet finished praying, he comforted his daughter gently and said, "My daughter, do not cry. Allah will support your father." And these same people, years later during the conquest of Mecca, would hear him say, "Go, for you are free." Truly, he was sent as a mercy to all mankind. The same evil man, Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt, had a very close friend named Ubay ibn Khalaf. One day, Uqba heard the Quran being recited by Prophet Muhammad, and the words of Allah touched his heart deeply. He went to his friend Ubay and said, "I heard the words of Muhammad, and I swear of Allah, they seem beautiful." But Ubay became furious and told him, "You are no friend of mine unless you go to Muhammad and spit in his face." Imagine this. Yesterday, Uqba was listening to the Quran with admiration. The Prophet saw him approaching from a distance and smiled warmly, thinking Uqba had returned to hear more truth. The Prophet even opened his arms to welcome him kindly. But suddenly, Uqba came close and spat directly into the face of the Messenger of Allah. The Prophet calmly wiped the spit from his blessed face. At that moment, Allah revealed words in the Quran regarding Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt and what he had done.
ويوم يعض الظالم على يديه ويوم يعض الظالم على يديه يقول يا ليتني اتخذت مع الرسول سبيلا يا ويلتى ليتني لم أتخذ فلانا خليلا يا ويلتى ليتني لم أتخذ فلانا خليلا لقد أضلني عن الذكر بعد إذ جاءني وكان الشيطان للإنسان خذولا.
If not for bad companionship, Uqba could have become one of the companions of the Prophet. Righteous friends lead to paradise, while corrupt friends lead to destruction. Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt did not stop there. One day, while the Prophet was praying beside the Kaaba, Uqba came from behind carrying his cloak. He twisted it tightly around the neck of the Prophet and pulled with all his strength. The Prophet began struggling to breathe. His blessed face became red, and he nearly collapsed from suffocation. He slowly fell to his knees while Uqba continued tightening the cloth around his neck. Finally, when Uqba feared that the Prophet might die, and feared the reaction of Abu Talib and the Prophet's tribe, he released him and stepped away. Despite his strength and ability to fight back, Prophet Muhammad remained patient and merciful. He was truly the Prophet of mercy and forgiveness. Peace and blessings be upon Muhammad. As we saw before, Prophet Muhammad suffered terrible harm and persecution. One day, an important moment happened, a moment connected to a famous hadith that many people misunderstand today. This story is important because it helps answer a false accusation made against Islam. Do you know when this hadith happened? It was after all the suffering we talked about together. After Khabab ibn al-Arad was burned with fire. After Bilal ibn Rabah was dragged through the streets of Makkah. After Zinira was tortured. After Yasir was killed. After Sumayya was murdered in the most horrific way. After Ammar ibn Yasir was forced under torture to say words of disbelief. One day, the Prophet entered the sacred mosque and saw the same people who mocked and abused him sitting there. He began making tawaf around the Kaaba. During the first round, they laughed at him, insulted him, cursed him, and mocked him until they nearly fell to the ground from laughter. The Prophet simply looked at them and continued walking. Remember, the companions were exhausted emotionally and physically. Some had already reached a point where torture forced them to utter words they did not truly believe. So from time to time, the Prophet needed to strengthen them and remind them that they were upon the truth. During the second round, the mockery continued again. The Prophet remained patient. Then in the third round, he stopped and said, "Quraysh, if you do not stop, then I have come to you with slaughter." Some people took this hadith out of its context and falsely claimed Islam spread by violence. Muhammad was a prophet of violence. But that is completely false. Who was the Prophet speaking to? Not all of Quraysh. He was speaking only to the small group sitting there tormenting and torturing the Muslims. And why did he say it? Because of everything they had done. It was a warning, meaning, leave us alone. Leave my companions alone. It was not a command for violence. And even the word slaughter here is understood as an Arabic expression and warning, not literal killing. Just as the Prophet once said, "Whoever betrays his brother is as if he slaughtered him without a knife." That is figurative language. Like when someone says jokingly or angrily, "I'll kill you." It does not literally mean they are preparing a knife. So taking the hadith away from its historical context and using it to accuse Islam of violence is dishonest. The Prophet was among the furthest people from cruelty and injustice. Let me tell you a story that shows the incredible mercy of Prophet Muhammad. There was a man named Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul. He was one of the people who hurt the Prophet the most. He even slandered Aisha bint Abi Bakr, accusing her falsely in the famous incident of Al-Ifk. Despite all this evil, the companions would come to the Prophet and say, "Messenger of Allah, allow us to kill Abdullah ibn Ubay." But the Prophet would reply, "Do not do that. Perhaps Allah may guide him to Islam." Then came the day Abdullah ibn Ubay was dying. He requested that the Prophet visit him. And amazingly, the Prophet accepted the invitation. Imagine that. This man had deeply hurt the Prophet and his family. Yet the Messenger of Allah still went to him. Abdullah then said, "Muhammad, honor me today with your garment so I may be buried in it. Wash me and pray over me." The Prophet replied, "You shall have what you ask." When Abdullah died, the Prophet personally washed him and even gave him his own garment as a burial shroud. Then the Prophet stood to pray over him. At that moment, Umar ibn al-Khattab objected and said, "Messenger of Allah, are you praying over this hypocrite?" The Prophet replied gently, "Leave me, Omar." Umar continued reminding him of the man's crimes. Finally, Umar said, "But Allah has forbidden it." Then the Prophet replied, "No, Omar." Allah said,
استغفر لهم أو لا تستغفر لهم إن تستغفر لهم 70 مرة فلن يغفر الله لهم ذلك بأنهم كفروا بالله ورسوله والله لا يهدي القوم الفاسقين.
And I will ask forgiveness for him more than 70 times, perhaps Allah may forgive him. And afterward, Allah revealed,
لا تصل على أحد منهم مات أبدا ولا تقم على قبره إنهم كفروا بالله ورسوله وماتوا وهم فاسقون ولا تعجبك أموالهم وأولادهم إنما يريد الله أن يعذبهم بها في الدنيا وتزهق أنفسهم وهم كافرون.
What mercy! What patience! Peace and blessings be upon Muhammad. One day, a man was dragging a sheep while holding a knife in his hand, preparing to slaughter it. When the Prophet saw this, he became upset and said, "Do you wish to kill it twice? Why did you not sharpen your blade before bringing it?" Meaning, do not let the animal watch the knife. The Prophet also said, "Does none of you fear Allah regarding his animals?" Whenever the Prophet sent Muslim armies, he would advise them saying, "Do not kill an elderly person. Do not kill a woman. Do not kill a child. Do not kill the sick. Do not destroy homes. Do not burn crops. Do not cut down palm trees. Do not burn flowers. You will find monks devoted to worship in monasteries, leave them and what they worship." And the Prophet even forbade attacking enemies at night. The companions asked, "Why, Messenger of Allah?" He replied, "So that women and children are not terrified." What mercy! What we have sent you except as a mercy to the worlds. So it is impossible to interpret the hadith. I have come to you with slaughter. In the violent way some people falsely present it. Mus'ab ibn Umair was one of the most handsome and wealthy young men in Mecca. He was only 23 years old and lived a luxurious life. His clothes and perfumes came from Ash-Sham. Yet despite all this comfort, he became one of the heroes of Islam. Later, during the Battle of Uhud, he would die defending the Prophet. When Musabi accepted Islam, his mother threatened him. "If you do not leave the religion of Muhammad, I will deprive you of your inheritance." He replied, "Take whatever you wish." So she imprisoned him and prevented him from food and drink until he became weak and thin. His skin became damaged from suffering until it resembled snake skin. Suhaib al-Rumi was another noble companion. He was originally from the Roman lands and had long hair. After accepting Islam, Quraysh tortured him terribly. They would grab him by his hair and force his head into extremely hot water. Whenever they felt he was close to dying, they would pull him out again. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas accepted Islam, and his mother threatened him, saying, "I swear of Allah, if you do not leave the religion of Muhammad, I will neither eat nor drink until I die. And people will call you the killer of your mother." But Sa'd answered, "My mother, even if you had 100 souls leaving your body one after another, I would never leave the religion of Muhammad." Then Allah revealed,
ووصينا الإنسان بوالديه حسنا وإن جاهداك لتشرك بي ما ليس لك به علم فلا تطعهما إلي مرجعكم فأنبئكم بما كنتم تعملون.
Even though his mother was not Muslim, Allah still commanded kindness toward her. Imagine then the greatness of honoring a believing mother. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud accepted Islam and learned a new surah. He desperately wanted to recite the Quran publicly. He was thin and physically weak, but his faith was powerful. He said, "I will recite the Quran publicly before them." So he stood near Mount Safa and began reciting loudly.
الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان.
Quraysh became furious. Who is reciting Muhammad's words openly without fearing us? He was the first person after the Prophet to publicly recite Quran in Makkah. They grabbed him and beat him brutally until his face was covered in blood and he lost consciousness. The companions carried him home and treated him. When he woke up, he said, "I swear of Allah, I will do it again tomorrow." And he actually returned the next day and recited again. They beat him even harder. Still he said, "I swear of Allah, I will repeat it tomorrow." Then the Prophet told him, "Enough, Ibn Mas'ud. You have already made them hear enough of Allah's words." Abdullah replied, "Messenger of Allah, they have become insignificant to me." Eventually, the companions convinced him to stop. Quraysh were beginning to lose their minds. The wife of Abu Lahab, Jamil, forced her sons Utbah and Utayba to divorce the daughters of the Prophet, Ruqayya bint Muhammad and Kulthum bint Muhammad. And one day, Abu Jahl said, "If Muhammad does not stop, I will step on his neck while he prays." He approached the Prophet while he was in sujood. But suddenly the people saw Abu Jahl stepping backward in terror before falling onto his back and running away. They asked him, "What happened to you?" He replied, "I swear of Allah, I saw between me and Muhammad a trench of fire. Had I stepped forward, I would have burned." Abu Bakr al-Siddiq was among the most merciful people. The Prophet said about him, "The most merciful of my nation toward my nation is Abu Bakr." He was very wealthy and owned 7 businesses in Makkah. He used his wealth to buy tortured Muslim slaves and free them for the sake of Allah. He freed Bilal, Ammar, Zinira, Kabab, and others. His father, Abu Quafa, who was not Muslim at the time, once told him, "My son, if you are going to buy slaves, buy strong men who can protect you." But Abu Bakr replied, "I only seek the face of Allah." Then Allah revealed,
وَسَيُجَنَّبُهَا الْأَتْقَى الَّذِي يُؤْتِي مَالَهُ يَتَزَكَّى وَمَا لِأَحَدٍ عِندَهُ مِن نِّعْمَةٍ تُجْزَى إلا ابتغاء وجه ربه الأعلى ولسوف يرضى.
Quraysh showed no mercy to anyone in Makkah. They mocked the Prophet, accused him of madness, and constantly searched for new ways to hurt him. But now they faced a huge problem. The season of pilgrimage was approaching. They feared that the Arab tribes coming to Makkah would hear the words of Muhammad, accept Islam, and become allies against Quraysh. So Quraysh became desperate to stop anyone from listening to the Prophet. What would Quraysh do next? That is what we will know in the next episode. This is where our episode ends on this day about the story of the Prophet Muhammad. May Allah bless him and grant him peace, and you have my best regards and peace from Allah upon you and his mercy and blessings.